The shocking 2024 election map based on final poll average. Guys, is it true?
Most recent New York Times and CNN College poll putting the former president ahead of Harris by a whopping double-digit margin. Trump's performance this time has been so much better than it was in the last election, and so the Lone Star State is no doubt going to be likely red if the polls underestimate him once again, which they like.
Guys, is there a study done on, like, let's say the last 2 or 3 elections, right? On what were the poll looking like, and what were the actual results?
Shut up.
Likely will. Trump is on track to win by at least 10 points or more. Before we continue, nearly 70% of you guys are not subscribed, so in the 2nd district, we do have a slightly more competitive race. This is because the 2nd district encompasses just Omaha and its surrounding suburbs, so it's a pretty urbanized area. Kamala Harris leads by a 10-point margin on average. However, this is mainly because the district lines have changed from what they were back in 2020. The district definitely favors Democrats a lot more than it did 4 years ago when Joe Biden carried the 2nd district by just under 7 points. The 2nd district of Nebraska is going to be likely blue, and then with Alaska and Hawaii, they're both going to be pretty safe for both candidates. Alaska solid red, Hawaii solid blue. We're now going to shift our attention up to the Midwest. This really is where the election is going to be decided. We all know that Trump is going to dominate in the Sun Belt.
Ask ChatGPT.
He wants to clinch 270 electoral votes. He is going to have to win one of the 3 former blue wall states.
Hello,
Wisconsin, Michigan, and
ChatGPT.
Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris has to win all 3.
Guys, let me ask. If we compare the U.S. election final polls to the actual results, how accurate are the polls in, let's say, the last 10 elections? We'll do it more like 4. In 2008, polls predicted a win for Barack Obama with significant margin. As a result, won by about 7.2% points. That's kind of massive. Polls were accurate, generally predicted Obama's victory by margin close to the actual result. Polls were tight race, but linked towards Obama. As a result, Obama by 4. Okay, that's actually pretty accurate. Polls very accurate.
42 months away.
Polls predicted a win for Hillary Clinton in the popular vote.
3 years, my juicer.
Then won popular vote by about 2.1%, but not won the electoral college. Well, this is getting confusing now.
Hello.
So maybe accuracy, good accuracy, moderate accuracy, reasonably accurate on the winner, but overestimated margin. Wait, how is it good? How is that accurate if it lost? Well, yeah, guys, it's changing the method at the top. It's changing it, guys. This is winner, right? Of popular vote. No, these are winners, and this is winner popular vote. It's different.
30 months. Wow, never done before.
Okay, do this again, but remove popular vote entirely.
Smile.
Because who cares about popular vote? Who cares? Oh, missed the electoral college outcome despite predicting the general trend. Oh, okay. So as long as it is within the margin.
If she wants to have any chance of becoming elected the 47th president. And so we're going to begin up in Minnesota, where Kamala Harris' performance simply hasn't been up to par with what we saw from Joe Biden 4 years ago. He carried Minnesota.
Yo, how about you guys, we get educated on this shit. How about that? So we're prepared for tomorrow, because tomorrow's the big day.
And he wasn't running with the state's literal governor. Kamala Harris right now is running with Tim Walz as her running mate, and she doesn't even lead in Minnesota by 5 points. The most recent Rasmussen Reports poll has her ahead by 3%. We also have a Minnesota Post poll that had her leading by 3. I mean, Kamala Harris' performance in the home state of her running mate has been quite abysmal. She's never led by more than 7.
Guys, I'm about to say something very, very brain rot, okay? I feel like this election is different than the other ones, chat, for one reason. I feel like access to information and overall spread of information and the way we consume and talk about stuff is completely different because of shorts content and sensational stuff on social media. That's what I feel like. No? Okay.
44 months with the juicer. I appreciate all you do.
7
Can
points.
I
If
get
she
a
can't even
welcome to the
outperform
jungle?
Biden in the home state of her vice presidential candidate, she's really not going to do well elsewhere on the map, and especially in the Midwest. She should worry about Wisconsin and Michigan, Pennsylvania especially. To the right, with the state electing ground states that Trump actually won against the incumbent president 4 years ago. And there's no doubt he is going to win North Carolina again. Just look at the spread of polls here. He leads by pretty significant margins in virtually every single one of them.
Oh, this thing is taking all the polls. Ah. Chat, could it be, guys, is there a mathematical bias to polls? Like, let's say, news outlets that are red or are a lot more red than blue are blue in density.
Polls here, he leads by pretty significant margins in virtually every single one of them. He has also maintained a lead in the polling average throughout the entirety of the 2024 cycle. There was never a point where Kamala Harris or Joe Biden were ever ahead. Trump is going to win the Tar Heel state for a third time in a row. North Carolina is going to be lean red, with Trump ahead by just over 1.
New poll has Kamala Harris and Donald Trump locked in a dead heat.
Latest Wall Street Journal poll.
New Washington Post poll out this morning.
A new exclusive poll.
New polls have been released what feels like every day this election cycle.
Trump ahead by 2.
Harris up by 4. Deadlocked race.
A tied race.
And you might be staring at ones like these, hoping it'll answer the question of who will win this presidential election. But there's a lot more to these numbers than meets the eye. And there's a few reasons they'll disappoint you if you rely on them to predict the future.
It is still anybody's race.
These numbers are from the Times Siena poll on October 25th, which suggests that 48% of American voters plan to vote for Kamala Harris, while 48% plan to vote for Donald Trump. But of course, pollsters didn't survey every American. They surveyed a sample of them. Today, pollsters find their sample of people to survey through a mix of phone calls, text messages, online surveys, or by mail. And if you're—
Oh, God! Fuck! Oh, dude!
thinking, who even answers those kinds of things? The answer is not a lot of people.
That skews everything.
The response rate for polling can be as low as 1 to 2%, which means pollsters have to reach out to as many as 100,000 people to poll 1,000 people, which is a typical sample size for a national poll, or 50,000 people to reach the roughly 500 people typical for a state poll. Which sounds small, but that amount of people can still be accurate at measuring the opinion of a population, if you read the polls with a few caveats in mind. The first thing to know about these numbers is there is a margin of error, which means this number is best thought of as the center point in a range of possible outcomes.
Hold on.
On average, for a sample size of 1,000, any number that's 3% different in either direction could still technically be accurate. And that's simply because any time you depend on a sample to represent a larger population, there's a lack of precision. A general rule of thumb is that the bigger the sample size, the smaller the margin of error. But there's only so much pollsters can do. Polling more people is a lot more costly and time-consuming, which matters because big news events can alter people's opinions. And ultimately, increasing the sample size can have diminishing returns on accuracy.
And it really starts to level off around 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 interviews. In terms of if you keep putting in more effort, are you gonna be more accurate? The answer becomes no pretty quickly.
Huh.
And part of it is because as a pollster, you're doing a phone poll or you're doing an online poll. And if you keep interviewing thousands and thousands of more people through that mechanism.
Yeah, but chat, from the people that answer the phone, right? Let's say you answer the phone and you do a poll. What kind of person does that? That itself is a bias.
The next 10,000 are going to be just like the 2,000 people you already spoke with.
This margin of error doesn't account for other errors in the polling process, things that are harder to measure, like excluding certain demographic groups, low response rates among certain groups, and people misunderstanding the survey questions or misreporting their opinions, which means this 3% margin is actually a low estimate.
The rule of thumb is that you should actually double it.
Before a poll is released, pollsters have to do some work to make sure the sample size looks just like the entire population, based on sources like the U.S. Census and voting files.
No. Polling the chat is brilliant. It's mostly young, mostly men, mostly gamers. The bias that you have in Twitch chat with any sort of other is ridiculous. It is one of the highest amount of bias you could have in a sample size.
Files. It's called weighting. For one, some groups are more likely to be reached by pollsters and respond to them.
You have usually too many college graduates, often too many women, and maybe too many white adults. If you look at 2016 and 2020, Trump supporters were more difficult to reach in surveys. After data collection, there's ways in which your sample now departs from being random and representative. Now, weighting is how a pollster fixes that.
So if each individual in a poll starts off with a value of 1, weighting is when people who are underrepresented compared to the larger population get a value higher than 1.
What?
While groups who are overrepresented get a smaller value. So if our imaginary sample here was made up of 60% women and 40% men, pollsters would make the women count less and the men count more to match the fact that about 52% of US voters are women, while 48% are men.
You would need to factor that in with the statistics of who actually votes. Let's say out of 100 people, is it more women or more men? You need to factor in who actually votes into that, and you compound it.
They repeat this for factors like age and race and geographic location too, until each individual is weighted in a way that makes the sample a good stand-in for the larger population it represents.
Oh, there you go.
Recently, pollsters started consistently weighting for education, too. In the 2016 election, some state polls underestimated Donald Trump's support among non-college educated people, an oversight that resulted in an election outcome few saw coming. Weighting respondents based on how their education level matches the general...
You want me to poll what? You want me to poll what, bitch? I'm going to pull what, motherfucker?
Population is intended to help solve for that. In the 2024 election, pollsters are increasingly waiting for things like how people voted in past elections, and party affiliation too, to avoid any other ways they could be over or underrepresenting a candidate's supporters. But the thing is, weighting a sample to match the general US adult population is pretty simple. Through sources like the US Census, pollsters know how many people are in each age group, or gender, or racial group, or whether someone went to college. But for a poll to be a precise prediction of an election outcome, pollsters are attempting to weight against an unknown population, the people who will actually vote in the future, on election day. There's no guarantee that anyone surveyed ahead of an election will actually vote. Some polls make educated guesses, counting people more who say they are likely to vote, or who are registered to vote, or who have voted in the past.
You would have to factor in the birth rate of a certain period, plus the death rate, right? And include that into the bias of age of up and down, and compound that into the voting population.
But at most, only 2/3 of Americans of voting age turn out to vote. And pollsters can only make informed guesses on who those people will be.
If there was a lot of waves, okay, like baby booming, okay, so a lot of people, there's a massive death rate, right? But the people that are old often vote more, right? So that if there was a massive wave of people that are younger and it polls a lot, right? Well, then these people who are younger, they vote less, and that whole ecosystem starts to fail. Because it is in 4 years. I mean, there was a wave that synchronizes the wave of an election plus the wave of birth rates at that, like 20 years ago or whatever.
Polls are good for a lot of things, at capturing where the population stands on big issues, or figuring out which states are really going to be decisive in the election outcome.
Okay, I'll pull the chat. If you are voting, who are you voting for? Anonymous.
Balls type shit.
Kamala Harris.
Kuvar.
Walls. Donaldo Trump. Vance. I cannot vote. Won't vote. Let's get it, chat. Come on, chat. Lock in. Guys, lock in. Guys, don't lie. Guys, if you lie, guys, there's a small device inside of your CPU that might stop working.
"4 years xQc l'estate CK je suis la bienvenue dans la jungle. Much love, brother."
Interesting. 8%. Guys.
Can I get a welcome to the jungle?
Chat, I gotta be honest, chat, guys. I'm gonna tell you how it is. This makes Kamala way ahead. I'm not kidding. Wanna know why? Because this chat is 97% male, and females vote more than males. And they're also a lot more likely to vote blue than voting red. You guys want me to lie to you and say some dumb shit, or want me to say tell the truth? That is I just said the truth.
But when the polls on voting choice are as close as they are in this election, the main thing they tell us is simply that the race is close. And the only way we'll know who will win is to pay less attention to the polling news cycle and wait until the votes are counted.
Before you go, I want to tell you...
Guys, I think like polls are inherently, unfortunately, chat, voter suppression.
Vote Vermin Supreme. When I'm president,
maybe I'm brain dead about this, but I feel like if somebody's way ahead, oh, it's a landslide. It's a landslide. I'm not gonna vote. Well, if it's gonna be, if in my state it's a massive landslide, why would I vote? I'm not gonna vote. Fuck this shit. If we're losing 80%, 20%.
How useless polls are is by polling chat
why
to
would
see
I?
if they have ever been polled in an election before.
You guys say I'm dumb,
has not been polled before.
But you need to understand that that mindset is something that a lot of people have. That is a very, very real mentality.